does Nicolas Jackson want out from Chelsea Football Club for next season? And we discuss our massive transfer fumble and fail to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Today, my friends, we have a lot of news to get through, so I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you guys check out my fixture list review, and to give you guys more context, I'm still not perfect. I'm still a little ill, so don't expect the craziest edit. So I hope you guys can understand that anyway. I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get straight into things. Let's start things with the first story, and courtesy of reports coming out from Italy. Are Juventus turning their attentions to Noni Madueke? Now, with our efforts to sign Michael Olise, is there any surprise that clubs may be circling in on some of our players now because they think some might be disillusioned and some might be there for the taking? Anyway, reports from Tuttosport report that Juventus are looking to add a more direct winger threat to their team, knowing that Chiesa is set to leave them this summer window. In the meantime, they're turning towards players like Adeyemi of Dortmund, with Dortmund showing interest in two young players in Sula and Huijsen that Juventus for some reason are open to selling. But on the other hand, they are also showing a lot of interest in Noni Madueke. Now, a lot of Italian clubs recently have been benefiting from essentially signing great talents for reduced fees in this country. You've seen great examples like Tamori, Ruben, Aaron Hickey of Brentford, Ferguson currently at Bologna. You're signing some great British talents for reduced fees because they're leaving for bargain prices, essentially, not reflective of their actual quality or ability. I wonder how much Juventus could afford to actually buy them for. I guess they're relying on selling players first, but Italian reports mention that Noni could be available for around 30 million euros. Now, in my opinion, that sounds way too small. That's way too little. He spent like nearly 40 million euros on this guy alone. So if he was to go, he must be leaving for a profit, because outside of the fact that he maybe not be a first team player, with injuries playing a large part as to why that's been the case, this guy is still one of the most promising wingers in the division, and statistically is one of the best dribbling wingers in the Premier League. Now, you guys might not like this part of the video, but I'm going to compare Mudryk and Madueke, because for me, I feel like if Mudryk was putting in the same level of performances that Noni showed, especially during the final stages of the season, there'd be a lot more faith, conviction and belief in Mudryk's potential, and belief that yes, this guy is set to blow and he's set to finally show us what he's really about. But on the other hand, I feel like we haven't necessarily given Noni enough credit, because he deserves big credit for how he stepped up as the season was coming to an end, because without Noni showing what he could do off the ball defensively, I don't think Pochettino has that confidence to be using Cucurella as an inverted fullback, and we wouldn't be seeing Cole Palmer playing as a 10, where he went to even new levels and even new heights. With Noni, you feel this reliability when he's on the ball, especially when he's carrying and taking men on, and the stats show this. I mean, look at his progressive carries. Look at the comparison between both him and Mudryk. You know, Noni is not losing the ball as much as Mudryk does. Noni offers the team an outlet out wide. He's offering the team more with shot creating actions and even with shots on goal as well too. So I'm mentioning this because I feel like it would be a mistake to cash in on him, and I think you're only cashing on this kid if you're selling him for substantial profit. But in the meantime, knowing the amount of games we're going to have next season with Conference League duties, Prem duties as well too, and the fact that most of these guys will probably pick up injuries that we can't even imagine or foresee, I think that Madueke makes this squad strong, and he is not someone that should even be considered for a sell at this point whatsoever, unless Noni himself decides, you know what, I'm sick and tired of battling it out here. I know from next season onwards, Esteval Willian will come to this club. I feel like I'm getting like priced out at right wing, and maybe it's best for me to leave right now when my stock's high, go to a top club, and show my ambitions and show what I'm about, because Noni has shown throughout his career already. When he left Spurs as a 15 to 16-year-old to go to PSV, he backs himself, he knows what he can do, and if he feels like he has to go this summer, would it surprise me, as he can see what's happening in the future? I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. So I think that's an interesting story. Let's watch this space and let's see what happens with sales, because we are still relying on sales to fund moves, and we aren't selling anyone at this point in time, and it seems like we aren't signing anyone as well too, because right now I'm going to discuss some pretty incredible developments that broke over the past 24 hours involving what seems like our failed attempt to sign Pedro Lima from Sporting Recife, as Wolverhampton Wanderers have beaten us to the race to sign him. Now, when I was first doing this story and when I saw like this quote article from Wolves' Mateus Cunha talking about this kid, praising him, mentioning the fact that they're both in the same city, same region back home, that should have been some foresight to predict, maybe there's something here with Wolves, because why is Cunha discussing him in particular out from nowhere? But it seems like Wolves have beaten us to the race. It's been confirmed by Sporting Recife, and at the moment the only thing that can stop this deal going through is if Lima fails a medical, or, and there's still a possibility, if we come back with a renewed bid and a renewed offer to try and prize him away from Wolves' hands. But in the meantime, it's not looking as ideal because Wolves have outpriced us. We offered 9.5 million in add-ons. They offered 10 million plus add-ons, but they offered the most important thing, and that is Premier League football, whereas us were hoping to buy him through BlueCo to loan him out to Strasbourg first. I'll discuss that part of the video afterwards, but when this news first broke yesterday, I was thinking to myself, wait, can Wolves actually sign this guy? What about his work permit? Because he is dramatically below the 15 points you need to qualify to play in the Premier League. But then it reminded me of something that we did with Andre Santos when we tried to register him from our squad when we signed him from Vasco da Gama. And essentially, you can apply for an exceptional talent visa. Now, the reason why Santos got denied was because they said you just signed as a carrier on loan. We don't see how we'll get substantial minutes that qualifies for this visa to actually be passed and go through. Whereas Wolves, on the other hand, can argue he will be our first team player because they're spending quite big money on him. And Wolves won't be going in for a move like this if they didn't feel pretty confident that he would get accepted for this visa exemption. So I think there's a big conversation around here, because now it makes me think about two players now, with obviously Lima being the second player and Valentin Barco being the first player. These two players that have kind of rejected the advances and vision of going to Strasbourg first before potentially seeing if they have a pathway into the Premier League. And this is where things are getting a bit murky now, because if you guys have watched me for a long time, you would have heard me say that, have we forced too much all at once? Are we trying to become this super club in the shortest amount of time humanly possible? Because it just doesn't work like that. And I get this like worry sometimes that we feel like with all our like scheming and strategies and vision that we have this divine right that the universe will just like bend to our whims and then everything will work out exactly how we planned it. Football doesn't work like that. Hence why when you're too hasty, these things can backfire on you. And now I'm getting this sense and feeling that maybe the top talents we're going for, because your Barcos and Limas, they aren't just like any ordinary talents. They don't feel confident behind this type of development for their careers. Because let's say they go to Strasbourg, who's to say they'll find any pathway into our first team? They have more control going to a Brian, going to a Wolves that will actually play them immediately, and then that way their talents can showcase themselves for what it is. The reality with us is that you can go to Strasbourg, but then we can still sign another right back or another two right backs or even more players. We're seeing already with most of the signings, like with your Fofanas, your Hutchinsons, possibly Casades, that we are even open now to selling. And maybe a lot of this potential sales comes from the fact that because things haven't worked in our favor, maybe we haven't sold your Broges and Jalabers and Gallaghers yet, which was originally the plan from day zero. They're still here, but now we need to sell before we can buy. So now it means you have to constantly go back to the drawing boards to scheme up new ways to come through. And this is the risk that you place yourself in when you rush too many things at once. Because I think in a different alternate universe, once you secure the first team first, you prioritize them, you qualify for Champions League, you win a trophy, you can show you can fight for the title, then stage 2 is going for the multi-club network route. Because then players around you, young players, will think, okay, this could be not only a great way for me to earn more money, but I'm also going to a team in Strasbourg that maybe are doing a bit better than how they're seen as. Because if you're a young player you're probably Googling who Strasbourg are. And it's not like we've made Strasbourg sexy. They don't have European football, which is the bare minimum I think you need to probably attract big talents like this to go there on loan, right? So it's not necessarily ideal. But to be honest, I think the only saving grace I could see that could maybe make this strategy come to life, which, yet again, unsurprisingly, would be the academy. Because I think to myself, when you have proper talents like Tyreek George, who's just signed a contract extension, when you have players like Josh Achimpong, you're thinking to yourself, why are you going for our young right back when you have one of the most talented ones here already? They should be the players who are getting these loan moves now to Strasbourg. They shouldn't be exclusively used for signings alone. That doesn't make sense, because let's keep things real. Most of these flip signings we're looking to do, spending 10-15 million here, thinking that we'll be selling them in the future for 2-3x the amount, it won't be happening. But you're more likely to make more money selling the Cobham grads if he performs there, and then Prem clubs, Championship clubs, and other clubs then will make an offer. That is realistically going to bring you more money, knowing that they are, of course, pure profit sales. Now, I'm not here to say that they should only be exclusively seen as sales, not at all. I'm trying to think from the perspective of the owners about what's more likely to bring in guaranteed money and more profit. It's your Cobham players. So this is a reminder that you have to respect what already exists and look to also maximize it and improve it, because we have the talents here. And I'm sorry, some of these guys now should be getting loan moves to Strasbourg. It shouldn't just be for signings that don't even want to come here to begin with. So that's what I have to say about the story. Let's see if we continue for Lima, and let's see what happens now surrounding this multi-network approach, because maybe some of these young players now aren't really that attracted to what we have to offer them. Now for the next part, we discuss a report that came out from TalkSport involving young Nicolas Jackson. And as reported by chief football correspondent Alex Crook, he essentially mentions the fact that Nicolas Jackson is still upset by the sacking of Pochettino. He's growing a bit disillusioned, and he would be open to a sale this summer, with there being light interest now from Atletico Madrid. I think so. And I get it, the manager who supported you, who backed you during difficult times when even your own fan base didn't even believe in you. The media were against you. They were saying you weren't good enough to play at this level. Not even playing for us, but at this level. You're gonna have that relationship with a guy that supported you, backed you, and pushed you during these difficult times, right? But is it the first time a player at this football club has considered their future during similar circumstances? Absolutely not. And I think this reminds me exactly of Didier Drogba. Now, since retiring, there's been many articles on Google, you can Google for yourself, which demonstrates Drogba proving that he was actually looking to leave the club on multiple occasions. Some of them came literally after his first season, with Drogba talking about having to, adapt to the difficulties, live in a new city, different weather, new environment, the difficulties he had with the fan base. And that's a fact. I was at those games every single week with my season ticket. I know Chelsea fans didn't actually start to rate Drogba until he first banged in 20 goals in this season. But it wasn't until the following season after that where he started to get a bit more respect. But his legacy was really cemented once he helped us win that Champions League. So history was kind of to Drogba in the future. But it took him a long time to get there with the fan base. But people don't remember that now. They just remember the legacy that was left, because that's kind of how life works. Drogba was also upset by Jose Mourinho leaving as well. And it was documented and reported that he was in tears and was really disillusioned. And another thing Drogba mentioned was the fact that, every single season, new strikers were constantly being bought, which shows that the club didn't necessarily have 100% conviction in a Didier Drogba. And I feel like Drogba's story really just shows a lot of similarities towards Nicolas Jackson. But this is where Nicolas Jackson can now take inspiration from Drogba, because I'm not going to hate on the kids for being disillusioned. This club's made even better players than Nico feel that way, but this is now a learning opportunity for him. It's a challenge for him that will either make him or will break him. So let's see what happens, because if he gets through this, he'll be a mentally stronger player, a more confident player, a better player. And we saw that transformation and evolution in Didier Drogba, who for me is one of the most complete strikers I've ever seen in terms of his all-round game. And it's so funny when I go back to watching clips of the old strikers every now and then. You just took for granted the technical capacities and abilities of these guys. But most strikers these days couldn't hold the ball up like that, chest the ball like that, play one touch like that. And I think we kind of took that for granted too often, to be honest with you. So I'm sure he'll get over this. I'm sure he'll be ready for next season. And I'm sure you guys will leave your thoughts and opinions, because we know at the moment that we aren't in any need to rush signing a striker. Signing Olise first is key because we have like 6 clubs after this guy. I've always felt like strikers are dependent on who gets sold, and we ain't sold no one yet. So let's watch this space. And to end things with the final stories, these are very quick updates and all the latest news. We start with Michael Olise, and as we know right now, many other clubs are now stepping up their interest to make their moves and sending their proposals. Everything this week will be Operation Olise. We know that unofficially, Olise wants to sign for us, and officially, Crystal Palace have given us permission to have conversations with him. We now just need to find out how this deal will be structured. Will players be offered in exchange? We've heard recently that Dacia Fofana's agent has also offered Fofana towards Glasner's Crystal Palace. Something could happen there. Amari Hutchinson is getting interest from Ipswich. They want to step up their moves to try and sign him, but similar to Olise, every club is after him as well. There's been talks of Madueke, Broja, and of course Jalaba, but I can't imagine any of them wanting to go down a step down in their career. So let's watch this space, but this whole next week will be focused on Michael Olise. On top of that too, Andre Santos may not possibly be remaining with the squad for next season, because as reported by The Athletic, the club are potentially open for him to return back to Strasbourg. Now I think this is common sense, and I've been saying this for so long. His future was always determined by Conor Gallagher. If Gallagher left, the pathway there is now open in the team. But at the moment, we're asking for too much money for a player that has 1 year left, and a player that doesn't even want to leave. So if Gallagher goes, he'll leave on his own accord. And right now, it makes sense for him to leave on a free, because you'll have better clubs after you, you'll earn more money, and you leave with your head held high. It makes sense for Santos to remain 1 full season at Strasbourg, because he was only there for half a season and didn't break into the team properly for until 6 weeks after. He's not been there that long. Continuity is key, in my opinion, and most importantly, we have to make Strasbourg sexier now. We need a better quality of player going to Strasbourg to push them up the league now. That's what we need to see. And for the final story, a little quick update on Calafiori, because Bologna have shown some interest in Cesare Casade. Now, we don't know if that's on a loan or a permanent. I believe it's a loan move, because I don't think Bologna have that type of money. And similar to many deals they did last season, with Salimakers of AC Milan being a prime example, they're open to deals like this. Now, with them having Champions League football, they could be a lot more attractive. Cesare feeling confident they can get more game time, and that could set him up better in the long-term future at this football club, because he's already worked under Enzo Maresca. If you're Casade, you want to come back a more complete, better player to impress Maresca for the following season. That's how I'm playing it long-term, in my opinion. And you'd imagine that if there was any business involving Calafiori and us, Casade would be involved in some capacity. Now, they're asking for a lot of money right now, between 40 to 50 million euros. Juventus has Calafiori's heart, but if they can't come to a deal, there's a big window of opportunity now to persuade the player to sign for you. And I think when we really want someone, we can show we can get them. So now it's down to Maresca and the club to make that happen. So my friends, that's all the latest news today. Share your thoughts and opinions, hit that like button too, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm the FC, this is BlueLionsTV. See you guys all soon. Cool.